welcome Laura Baker, Executive Director of Cyber Wyoming, who will be presenting the content. And just a quick reminder that this webinar is brought to you by the Wyoming SBDC Cybersecurity for Small Business program, which is funded by the United States Small Business Administration. Contact wyomingsbdc.org and get in touch with one of our advisors there. We're all throughout the state, and all of our services are no cost and confidential. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Laura. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just wanted to talk today a little bit about the WISP, the Written Information Security Plan. And I think you'll really like it. And nobody ever likes regulation, right? Let's start there. But I think you'll really like the way that you can translate this to a small accounting firm or a sole proprietorship. We're going to simplify something that sounds intimidating, the Written Information Security Plan. And if you've read the IRS guidelines for this, it does sound a lot more complex, and I think it's over 50 pages. By the end of this session, you will know what it is, why you need one, and how to make it fit your small firm, even if you're just a sole practitioner in the accounting industry. The IRS considers every accounting or tax preparation firm a financial institution. That means that even if you're a one-person practice, you're required to have this written plan describing how you secure client information. So you have to think of your WISP like your firm's data safety manual. If you suffer a data breach, and it happens even to small firms sometimes, having a WISP shows that you took reasonable precautions at the beginning, and it can protect you from penalties and help you respond more quickly. It's also just really smart business to be thinking about these things. So let's go through the overview for the requirements for the FTC Safeguard Rule and the IRS. Again, even if your practice is small, the same rules apply, but your plan can be proportionate to your risk and your size. First, you have to designate a data security coordinator. Now, let's be real here. This could be you. You might wear a lot of hats in your company, and we wear a lot of hats in our company. So we understand small businesses, and so does the SBDC. So if you're a sole practitioner, you may have to be this data security coordinator, whether you feel qualified or not. And I love that they say it has to be a qualified individual, because that doesn't make sense really for sole proprietors, right? You went to school for accounting, you might be a CPA, you're an accounting professional. This is what it is. But don't despair, because we can help you. Both Cyber Wyoming and the SBDC have trained cybersecurity business counselors, and our specialty is helping you gain confidence to manage your data security risks. The data security coordinator assesses risk to client data. Okay, so here's where you might get stuck. You probably haven't done a cybersecurity or data privacy risk assessment before. And if you go out and look for some of the scoring tools that the federal government provides, you've found that they're mostly for really large companies that have an IT person on staff. But don't worry, we've got your back. We have a right-sized risk assessment tool that Cyber Wyoming spent over 6 months developing off of those national standards, and it will work for your small business. And the Wyoming SBDC and Cyber Wyoming clients cut their average risk score by 71% in 2025. So don't worry about that. You can sign up with the SBDC or Cyber Wyoming or both of us, and we can help you with this risk assessment. The next thing you have to do is you have to implement safeguards, physical, technical, and administrative. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And then you have to oversee vendors that are handling your data. For instance, if you join the SBDC or Cyber Wyoming programs, the very first conversation we have with you is, how are we going to securely share data between us? Do you have that conversation with your clients? If not, we'll teach you how. But with these safeguards and managing client data, we have your back. The Wyoming SBDC and Cyber Wyoming can help you write your policies and procedures and make sure they are actually doable for your size of company. And if you've read the WISP document that's in the materials on this GoToMeeting, you know that it assumes that you know how to translate the protection intention to your size of business. But if you don't have experience with this stuff, it can be pretty intimidating, and that's where we can help. Every WISP covers 3 safeguard areas. First, the physical. Locks and keys. Are your file cabinets locked? Paper backup, paper shredding. Extra keys with a trusted individual in case something happens to you, offsite backups. These are all examples of physically protecting things. So if something happened to your office, would you be able to continue to work and continue to protect your client's data? Technical, passwords, antivirus, encryption, secure portals, multi-factor authentication. Do you have a secure portal for updating? Sorry about that. I thought I turned that off. Do you have a secure portal for uploading of client-sensitive information? And then the next one is administrative. Training, policies, and employee accountability. This is just management and training. It's what you do anyway. But it may also be succession planning if something happens to you, and vendor management. For instance, if you work with the Wyoming SBDC, they're bound by law to client privacy. Cyber Wyoming provides a privacy statement to you in our first meeting to assure you that we also keep your business confidence. All your vendors should have that privacy understanding, from your bank to your attorney to a chamber of commerce. You don't need fancy tools, just clear, enforceable habits. So let's talk a little bit more about vendor management because they make a big deal out of it in the WISP. You want to select service providers that maintain appropriate safeguards by ensuring that your contract requires them to maintain those safeguards and oversee the handling of customer information. We help you with some template wording that you can take to your attorney. Let's say that you're a sole practitioner and your computer needs a new screen because you broke it, maybe you dropped it or something like that. So you take it to a local repair shop. Great. Take the template along so that if they see any sensitive information on your computer while they're working on it, they signed a document saying it's on them not to breach that information. The next thing you have to do is testing and updating your plan regularly. What does this mean? Well, here's what the WISP says. It can't be a one and done effort. It needs to be on your calendar. They want you to evaluate and adjust the program considering, and I'm quoting, relevant circumstances. So what are relevant circumstances? Well, they're the changes in your firm's business or operations, or the results of tech changes in security testing and monitoring. Here's an example. I was talking to a client actually today that needs a higher level of tech on her website. And her website designer actually recommended going to another company. This would be a relevant circumstance. The vendors have changed, so you'd have to update your WISP. And she wants to build new security into that new website and into the new relationship. So besides that, we can also run your cyber score over and over again to see your improvement. So in this example, you may want to do a cyber score before and after a major change, like your website update. We can help you create a cybersecurity maintenance plan that works for you. The next one is using multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication can save you. You can use passkeys, your cell phone, you can get text to your cell phone, or you can use something like Google Authenticator. The university uses Duo for MFA, for example. But put it on everything. Your bank accounts, your QuickBooks, your email, your social media, your website. One of the people that I work with in California thought she had multi-factor authentication on her LinkedIn account, and she didn't. And she was the victim of an account takeover, and it took her over 40 hours to recover her account. And in the meantime, the hackers contacted some of her high-up acquaintances in DC. It was not good for her reputation. I think it's really telling here that the IRS requirements specifically single out multi-factor authentication. Everything else is pretty general, but multi-factor authentication is important enough for them to say, here's what you have to do. The FTC safeguards rule requires authentication through verification of at least 2 of the following types of authentication factors. And I'm going to explain these to you. One is like, excuse me, a knowledge factor, like a password. I know my password. It's a knowledge factor. The second one is a possession factor, like a token or a cell phone. The third is inherence factors, such as biometric characteristics, like your face recognition or your thumb recognition. So let's apply this to your cell phone that you use for work. Do you have a PIN? And are you also authenticating via a thumbprint or face recognition? Those 2 things would count. Multi-factor authentication saved Cyber Wyoming just last month when someone in Charleston guessed our password to our social media scheduling app, even though it was unique, long, and has capital letters, numbers, and symbols. And if the cloud product that you love doesn't have multi-factor authentication, start harassing them on social media and a letter writing campaign. This has worked for 2 of the clients I've worked with, and the company finally did implement multi-factor authentication. Continuing on with requirements, report breaches affecting 500 plus people within 30 days. Reporting a security event affecting 500 or more people as soon as possible is great, but it may not actually be practical based on your attorney's advice. However, you have to follow the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. So your attorney may be advising you to yeah, let's go ahead and start notifying, even though you're not quite ready. The data security coordinator has to determine if changes in operations are needed, and we'll talk about the reporting requirements next. So when it comes to data breaches or cyber incidents, create your relationships ahead of time, or else you'll be building the bridge as you try to walk over it. Find out if your insurance covers attorney fees to help you through a data breach. Make sure that you've talked to your insurance agent about this. You might have an IT person in your community that you work with occasionally. Talk to them also. And like I said, you have to follow the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, and you'll probably need an attorney to help you translate that. Here's what else they recommend from the WISP. You have to have insurance for data theft, liability insurance, and cyber theft insurance, as well as insurance. And I would add, as well as insurance that includes legal counsel for notifications if a data breach occurs. You have to notify the IRS stakeholder liaison, state and local law enforcement too. And you have to follow the FTC's data breach advice for the safeguards rule. But you may also need to contact other agencies and some other vendors to help you. Any insurance agent will tell you don't contact your clients until you've consulted an attorney. Why? Because you have to follow the state laws of the client's home address for notification of a data breach. So if you're working in Colorado and Wyoming and Nebraska as an accountant, you have to follow all 3 of their state rules depending on that client's home address. Finally, there's the postmortem. The data security coordinator has to determine if changes in operations are needed and document them in the WISP. The IRS provides a great sample in the publication that's in the materials list on the GoToMeeting. Most small firms can adapt that structure in less than 5 to 7 pages. But sometimes the terminology can be difficult because it's written for a larger organization with an IT person that can help translate it. And that's really what we can help with, the Wyoming SBDC and Cyber Wyoming, the translation of the intent of publications 5708. The goal is really to have something written, clear, and usable. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Use the IRS sample language, but if you struggle to make that sample language applicable to your small practice, contact us. We can help. Just make sure that these 6 topics appear somewhere in your plan. And we have good news. Our right-sized templates that the Wyoming SBDC and Cyber Wyoming use cover all of these. Here's an example of a sole practitioner. It shows that you don't need a giant binder. Most companies that have gone through this program with us have also said it was a lot more fun than they thought it would be. For a one-person shop, your WISP can fit on just that few pages, but it must be intentional and reviewed yearly. Jane may be the data security coordinator. She uses a password manager and MFA on her work computer. She has a list of apps and cloud systems that outline who has access and where multi-factor authentication is used. In case something happens to Jane, she has a succession plan agreement with another accountant in town, and she made that person the emergency contact in her password manager so that if something happens to her, they can gain access after a certain number of days. She shreds sensitive documents, has an administrative list that has tasks on her calendar for her maintenance plan, and she has an incident response plan in case of a data breach that has her to-do list and her call list. And there are a few more simple items we would probably tell Jane to use, but you get the gist of it. A key point that I want to stress again is a WISP is a living document. It can't be a one and done form. Schedule a 30 to 60 minute review every year, ideally before tax season starts, or maybe around the time of your annual insurance review with your agent. Make sure you have multiple copies in case your office has a fire and you can't get to yours on your computer. And keep all the vendor agreements to your data and your client. Keep all the vendor agreements to keep your data and your client's data safe. All of these resources are free from the IRS and the FTC and NIST, but some may require a little bit of translation, which is where the local resources come in, Cyber Wyoming and the Wyoming SBDC. A good WISP isn't just about checking off the boxes. It's about protecting your clients, your reputation, and your livelihood. Even small steps like enabling multi-factor authentication and writing down your procedures can make a really big difference.
I think we'll wrap it up there for today. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Tyler, in the background for running our technology. And we will hopefully see some of you next Thursday on our next webinar. Otherwise, have a great afternoon, and we'll see you all again soon. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.